I always believed in family. I believed that the people who brought me into this world, who raised me and nurtured me, would protect my future. I believed that my parents wanted the best for me, even if their methods were sometimes flawed. I never imagined that the ones I trusted the most could betray me so completely. My name is Scarlett, and this is the story of how my family gambled away my college fund and how I took everything they owned to reclaim my life and my dignity. It all began when I received my acceptance letter to my dream university. The moment I held that envelope, my chest swelled with pride. This was the result of years of dedication, late nights, studying, and pushing myself beyond every limit. I could not wait to tell my parents. I imagined their smiles, their pride, their joy for me. But the moment I brought it up at the dinner table, something felt off. My father looked away, avoiding my eyes. My mother's smile was forced tight, as though she were holding back a secret. My siblings shrugged or muttered inconsequential comments completely, missing the significance of the moment. I brushed it off, thinking perhaps they were just tired, preoccupied, or stressed. But a small part of me, deep in my gut, felt an unease I could not shake. A week later, it became clear I needed to withdraw my tuition fees. I asked my parents for the money they had promised would be there, the money that was meant to secure my future. The hesitation in my father's eyes was instantaneous, almost involuntary. I froze. Something was not right. Then came the confession: they had gambled it all away. Every penny saved for my education had vanished. My dream, my future, they had wagered it for fleeting games of chance, for entertainment that destroyed lives. My heart froze. I could not breathe. I could not process how the people I trusted the most could betray me like this. I kept asking questions. How? Why? What were you thinking? They offered nothing but excuses, broken apologies, and helplessness that felt shallow and rehearsed. Rage, despair, and disbelief collided inside me. I wanted to scream, to yell, to throw everything across the room, but instead I left, quietly, my mind racing. For days I pretended everything was normal. I did not cry in front of them. I did not let them see the storm inside me. I began to think, plotting silently, because I realized that anger is only as useful as the action it drives. And I had an idea, plan that would turn their betrayal into my ultimate advantage. I started working. I took multiple jobs, tutoring, waitressing, freelance, writing, anything to earn money. Every spare penny I earned went straight into savings and investments. While my family continued their reckless spending and gambling, I built quietly, methodically, and with purpose. Late nights became my routine. I devoured books on business, finance, and investment. I learned how to make money work for me. I started small, learning about stocks, small local businesses, and real estate opportunities. Every time my parents boasted about their luck, I reminded myself silently that my luck would come from discipline, knowledge, and patience. It was during those quiet nights that I realized something important. Betrayal is painful, but it also sharpens you. It forces you to think in ways you never have to adapt to survive. Over the next year, I launched a small business. It was not glamorous. It was not publicized. It was a modest venture. But every dollar was mine. Every decision I made was precise, calculated, and deliberate. I was not just working to earn money. I was building power. I was reclaiming my agency. Meanwhile, my family remained blind to my progress. They continued gambling, borrowing, and spending recklessly. They laughed at me when I suggested more practical investments or tried to share insights on financial responsibility. They thought they had won, that I was powerless, that their betrayal had destroyed my future. But I knew better. I was growing stronger, smarter, and more patient. I kept my progress secret. I did not need to announce it. Every night I watched my small business grow, my investments compound, and my confidence build. I had discovered a new power, the power of silent preparation. Then came the first real opportunity. I noticed that my parents' debts were mounting. Creditors were calling. Businesses they had invested in were failing, and yet they continued to gamble, believing they would find some lucky break. I watched the cracks form, and my resolve hardened. The time would come when all of it would be mine, not through force, not through confrontation, but through strategy, timing, and patience. Months passed, and my business grew into a respectable enterprise. I opened another branch, this time larger and more sophisticated. Every decision was carefully calculated. I saved, invested, and expanded while my parents reckless. Habits only accelerated their downfall. Every family gathering was now a reminder of their weakness. They laughed about trifles, boasted about tiny victories, and flaunted illusions of wealth. They believed they were untouchable. Little did they know I was preparing a plan that would make them powerless. I realized that revenge was not about rage or cruelty. It was about reclaiming control, proving that their betrayal could never define my life. I had learned to let them underestimate me to stay calm while I quietly grew stronger. One night, as I reviewed all my finances and assets, I smiled. Quietly, the numbers reflected. More than money, they reflected power, strategy, and the promise that soon everything that had been taken from me would return. Multiplied, I whispered. To myself, they gambled with my future, but they cannot gamble with my mind, my strategy, or my determination I will win. And that was the moment I knew the plan had begun. After discovering what my family had done, I realized that anger alone would not help me. Screaming, confronting, or pleading would accomplish nothing. They had gambled away my future, yet I had the chance to take control, not in a moment of rashness, but through patient strategy and relentless effort. That's exactly what I decided to do. I threw myself into work. I kept multiple jobs at once, juggling tutoring, freelancing, and part-time shifts at local businesses. Every penny I earned went into investments or expanding my fledgling business. I learned how to stretch every dollar, make it grow and plan ahead. I learned about stocks, real estate, and small business acquisitions. While my family continued their reckless gambling and frivolous spending, I quietly built a foundation strong enough to support an empire. I was careful to stay invisible. I did not tell my parents or siblings about my progress. They believed I was struggling and weak, which only fueled my determination. Every night I stayed up late studying, planning, and calculating my next move. My mind was sharper than it had ever been, focused entirely on one thing, reclaiming what was mine. Months turned into years. My small business grew slowly but steadily. I reinvested every profit, purchased undervalued properties, and acquired small local companies that were struggling. I watched trends, analyzed markets, and learned how to leverage every opportunity. The family who had stolen from me had no idea that I was quietly amassing power that would soon surpass theirs. While I worked, my family spiraled further. Their debts mounted, their investments failed, and they borrowed money to continue gambling. They laughed, thinking luck was on their side, completely oblivious to the storm. I was preparing. The irony was delicious. They thought they had destroyed me, yet their recklessness was creating the perfect opening for me to strike. I remember the day I purchased my first major property. Without their knowledge, the lawyer handed me the papers, and I signed with a calm smile. It was a small victory, but it represented the first tangible step in reclaiming my life and taking control of the world that had been stolen from me. Each new acquisition, each new investment was another brick in the foundation of the empire I was building. As the years passed, I expanded. Further, my business turned profitable, my investments flourished, and I became financially independent. I carefully monitored my family's finances from a distance. Every misstep they made, every debt they accumulated, was noted, cataloged, and stored in my mind for future use. I was no longer the powerless daughter. I was the silent force, growing behind the scenes, ready to reclaim what they had taken. Then came the moment to start striking. I began acquiring stakes in the very businesses and properties my family had relied upon, small at first, almost imperceptible, but enough to give me influence. I never announced my moves. I never let them know I was the new player in their world. They continued gambling, blind to the fact that the daughter they had betrayed was slowly taking control of everything around them. By this point, I had become strategic in every decision I created. Companies used intermediaries and carefully studied laws and loopholes that would allow me to acquire assets without alerting them. My family believed they were still in control, but the reality was that the foundation they had built on luck and deceit was crumbling under my calculated influence. I also took the time to strengthen my public reputation. I built relationships with investors, bankers, and business partners. I became known as reliable, intelligent, and persistent. Meanwhile, my family's reputation suffered as their debts and failures became increasingly public. They had lost their credibility. And my careful planning allowed me to position myself as the one in control, the one who could stabilize and expand the businesses they had mismanaged. The real turning point came when I acquired majority stakes in some of their most valuable holdings. They were unaware that I now had the power to influence, direct, and eventually take full control of the assets that had once been theirs. The irony was not lost on me. The family that had gambled away my college fund now had a daughter who quietly built an empire that would consume theirs. Finally, I was ready to confront them, but not with anger, not with accusations. I wanted the reveal to be clean, undeniable, and unforgettable. It was about more than revenge. It was about proving that betrayal never has the final word. My actions would speak louder than any words, and they would realize that their choices had created the very circumstances that allowed me to surpass them. I arranged a family gathering under the guise of reconciliation. My parents, unsuspecting, believed I was coming to discuss forgiveness, or perhaps to mend the fractured relationships my siblings expected. Nothing, thinking I was still struggling, still powerless, still the girl they had dismissed years ago. As we sat down together, I allowed the moment to settle. They were smiling, oblivious and relaxed. That's when I began to speak. I calmly told them about the progress I had made, the investments I had acquired, and the businesses I had taken control of. I detailed each strategic move I had made, and I explained how their recklessness and betrayal had allowed me to quietly surpass them. The room fell silent. My mother's face turned pale. My father's jaw tightened. My siblings' eyes widened in disbelief. They had never expected this. The quiet underestimated daughter they thought they had destroyed had built an empire that now controlled the assets they had mismanaged. Evan, my brother, finally spoke, his voice trembling. How is this possible? I smiled, calm and collected, because while you gambled, mocked, and lied, I worked, I learned, I planned, and now everything that was once yours, every asset, every investment, every property, is under my control. The realization hit them like a wave. Their laughter, their arrogance, their false confidence all vanished. They had been so focused on the moment, so blind to the future, that they had underestimated me completely. I did not need to gloat. I did not need to scream or yell. The silence, the undeniable. Truth was more powerful than any words I could have spoken. They had lost not because of me, but because of their own choices. And now I had reclaimed everything, not just for myself, but as a reminder that betrayal and recklessness always have consequences. The day had arrived after years of quiet planning, relentless work, and strategic growth. I was ready to confront the family that had betrayed me. I was not angry. I was not vengeful in the way they might expect. I was calm, collected, and in control. Everything I had built, every asset I had, quietly acquired, every investment I had, nurtured it, all led to this moment. I invited them to a dinner at a neutral location, under the pretense of reconciliation. They arrived smiling, confident, and oblivious. They believed they had won. They thought I was still struggling, still powerless, still the girl they had dismissed when they gambled away my college fund. Little did they know that I was now the one holding the power. As we sat down, I allowed a quiet tension to build. My mother commented on how things had been difficult financially, expecting me to sympathize. My father boasted about a recent gamble that had supposedly paid off. My siblings chuckled about minor victories in their lives. Their casual arrogance made me smile inwardly. They had no idea what was coming. I began calmly. I wanted to talk about the past, about the choices you made that affected me deeply, about the college fund that was meant to secure my future, but was lost because of reckless gambling. The room shifted. They were uneasy now. My mother's hand trembled slightly. My father's eyes narrowed. My siblings exchanged nervous glances, but I continued unbothered by their discomfort. I want you to understand something. I said I could have let this destroy me. I could have spent years in anger, resentment, and despair. But instead, I chose to act. I chose to grow. I chose to work quietly, diligently, and wisely. And now, everything you gambled away, everything you thought you could control, you no longer can. I revealed my first acquisition, the first business that had quietly shifted into my name. Their jaws dropped. I explained each strategic investment, each property, each stake I had. purchased over the years. By the end of my explanation, the silence in the room was deafening. You own all of this?" my father stammered. I nodded calmly. "Everything that you mismanaged, that you gambled away, that you thought would be gone. Forever, I have taken control. Not by force, not by confrontation, but through patience, strategy, and relentless effort. You had every opportunity to guide me, support me, and protect my future. Instead, you betrayed me, and now the consequences of that betrayal are clear." My siblings were speechless. Evan, the oldest, attempted to argue, "This is not fair. You cannot do this. These were our assets." I looked at him steady and unshaken. "Fairness is not defined by what you think you deserve. Fairness is built on actions, responsibility, and foresight. You gambled, wasted, and lied. I worked, planned, and persevered. The outcome reflects the choices each of us made." For the first time, the arrogance in their eyes vanished, replaced by fear and regret. They had underestimated me completely. The girl they dismissed had not only survived their betrayal, she had flourished. I did not stop. There I explained how I had leveraged my financial influence to stabilize and expand the businesses they had. Neglected employees who once worked under my parents now respected me. Investors trusted me. The empire they had failed to manage was now thriving under my guidance. You see, I continued. Revenge is not about destroying someone. It is about reclaiming your power, proving your worth, and allowing the truth to speak for itself. And the truth is, while you gambled with my future, I built one that you could never take away. The room was still. They could barely speak. Every word I had spoken was a mirror reflecting their mistakes. Every calm statement I made cut deeper than any shout could. I could see the regret forming in my mother's eyes, the shock in my father's face, the helplessness in my siblings. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. "I hope you understand now that actions have consequences. I hope you realize that betrayal only strengthens those it targets, if they are willing to act wisely. And I hope you learn, even if it is too late, that taking shortcuts and gambling recklessly will never create true success." No one interrupted. No one argued. The power dynamic had shifted entirely. I did not gloat. I did not mock. My calm, unshakable presence conveyed everything that needed to be said. The silent victory was far more potent than any confrontation or screaming match. Months passed after that dinner. Maintained my empire, continued expanding, and focused on building a life defined by my own choices and vision. My parents and siblings eventually reached out, attempting to apologize or reconcile, but I had learned my lesson. Forgiveness could exist, but it would not erase the past. I did not need their approval or validation. In the end, I realized that the betrayal, while painful, had been the catalyst for my growth. It forced me to learn resilience, patience, and strategy. It taught me that true power is built silently through effort and foresight, not through arrogance or shortcuts. I built not only wealth, but self-respect, independence, and confidence. I turned the worst moment of my life into the greatest opportunity. And as I look back, I understand that betrayal does not have to destroy you. It can refine you, shape you, and guide you to a destiny far greater than you imagined. And so if there is one lesson I want anyone listening to take away, it is this: never let betrayal define you. Never let the mistakes of others steal your dreams. Take control, stay patient, and use the power of strategy and persistence. Because the sweetest revenge is not seeing your betrayers suffer, it is rising above them stronger, wiser, and unstoppable.